It had been nearly 2.5 weeks since the journey to their destination began, and finally, Exovol, along with the ship captained by Friedmont, finally arrived at their destination, dropping out of light speed at a gas giant, specifically one of the 3 large moons that orbited it. Dropping out of light speed and quickly moving into the moon's orbit, within the rings of the gas giant, the magnetic fields of which distorted instruments, making it hard to get a clear read. However, the signal from several ships was still apparent even with the distorted readings. As soon as they began to approach, a hail immediately came in, as Mika wasted no time putting it on screen. "This is Captain Romeus. You are currently entering a territory within conflict. Identify yourself, or you will be fired upon." "This is Captain Angelica. I am the official reinforcements, along with Captain Friedmont. We're here to offer aid, support, and whatever needs be for the war. We're now sending you the encrypted signal given to us by the Church of the Dealer as verification of our identity," Mika said, as someone in the background of the display began to speak up. "We're receiving the signal, Captain. Verifying now. It's a little choppy with the interference, but as far as our scans can tell, and the decryption program, so far it seems legitimate. Everything seems to be adding up. If it were fake, we probably would have hit a problem by now. But we will finish just in case, sir." "You're damn right you will. In the meantime, lower from maximum alert. Captain Friedmont, Captain Angelica, you will hold position until we are done decrypting the signal. Once everything checks out, that is, if it does, and you are truly our reinforcements, which I assure you are very needed, then I will ask you to join the formation, along with the other ships. You arrived just in time. We're nearing conflict. The amount of time that we have to wait is coming to an end. However, we are having one last war council before this takes place, in order to determine strategy for the engagement. The meeting itself will be taking place on board the Verante. It is the Tier 4 vessel that is leading the assault. All captains are to be in attendance, so if you are who you say you are, I'd suggest you put your war clothes on and prepare for the meeting. It will be happening very soon. I'm actually rather shocked that you made it at all. We weren't expecting reinforcements this late. However, we won't be turning them down. I will talk to you again once the signal has been fully decrypted," he said, as the termination of the signal hit. The entire thing was choppy at best. There was a lot of interference around this gas giant, an aberrant combination of metals in the moons and the rings that orbit it. It was perfect camouflage, and I could see, Mika could see, why they were using it as their base of operations. It made it hard for anyone outside of the rings, or not extremely close to the formation, to tell what was going on inside of it, get readings on ships, or intercept transmissions. The farther you were away, the more distorted the transmission would become, eventually becoming unmanageable or indecipherable after only a short distance. So it was perfect for secrecy. It wasn't long before they finished decrypting the signal, and then asked Mika, or Captain Angelica, as she was claiming to be for the moment being, as well as Captain Friedmont to move their ships into position, joining an assortment of nearly 36 ships now. After which they quickly received a transmission, including a timeline for a captain's meeting between all of the individuals who would be participating in the conflict. Mika was actually shocked at the short time frame in which she had to actually show up. In fact, even if she bolted as fast as she could, she'd still only barely make it, which she absolutely did, quickly running to the docking bay and making her way to one of the shuttle pods, the combat shuttle pod that she had readied before and used to travel to Gorman, having a somewhat less experienced pilot at the helm, but she had no time to pull off one of the commanders in order to go with her. She needed to take what was available, and in quick order began to make it to her way towards the lead ship. Surprisingly, she noted that Friedmont also released a shuttle pod, in which she was surprised that he actually bothered to put some haste in his movement. She had half expected him to just not bother at all, but he was slower than her at the very least, entering the docking bay a few moments after her. As the shuttle pod set down inside the docking bay of this new ship, and Mika began to exit, seeing Friedmont setting down his shuttle nearby and exiting himself. There, in the docking bay of the ship, there was a large gathering of other ship captains. It looked like everyone was in attendance, as Mika tried making her way through the crowd towards the central location that everyone seemed to be gathering around. There was more than enough room, so it wasn't too difficult. She just had to make her way past some of the taller individuals so that she could actually see. As an individual stood at the center, next to a holographic display device, displaying a large number of things overhead. And it appears our new arrivals have managed to make it to the meeting. I would like everyone to welcome Captain Friedmont and Captain Angelica, both of which are captaining Tier 3 ships into this conflict of ours. I haven't as yet received any updates via the capabilities of your ships, so if you would, give me a basic layout so that I can at least decide where you're placed within formation, what your objective will be. All right, Friedmont said as he approached the center of the gathering. Captain Friedmont Dermis. My ship is a Category 3, or Tier 3 Revalian cruiser. It's an older make and model, but still solid in terms of both defense and offense. Maneuverability can be limited, but its overall firepower and defenses countermand it. Good. All the firepower we could add to this situation will only benefit us, the man leading this little meeting said, as he began to look over towards Mika. Okay, and Captain Angelica, what of your ship? Sorry, but a simple make and model description isn't going to cover it, Mika said. My ship's make and model are entirely custom and match nothing that you'd ever be able to identify on any records. As far as my ship's capabilities, its overall firepower is equivalent to that of a Tier 4 Morian warship, Mika said, as many of the people in the crowd began to look on in a great deal of surprise. Its defensive capabilities round out somewhere around the level of a Tier 4 Tarvian combat vessel. What? Some of the people in the crowd began to mutter. That's impossible, voices uttered here and there throughout the crowd, as well as its defensive and offensive abilities, Mika said, interrupting the muttering. My ship is also running 2 Tier 3 quantum drives in parallel, giving me an abundant energy supply. But do try to take into account that those are the abilities of my ship in the current state that it's in, which I refer to as combat state. My ship happens to have the ability to shift its form, to change it into a secondary state that I have dubbed Arc. While in combat state, its maneuverability is equivalent to that of a Tier 2 Simian fighter ship. Whilst in Arc state, its overall maneuverability, attack power, and defensive power decrease to somewhere in the range of your average Tier 3 cruiser of a Darien make and model. What good would something like that do? Why would you sacrifice all of your attack and defense abilities, and even your maneuverability? What the hell kind of use is a change like that? Someone shouted from inside of the crowd. Well, it's quite simple, Mika replied. Whilst in Arc state, my ship basically becomes, well, an Arc. A vessel made to house and protect other vessels. It expands its size and form, spreading out to nearly the size of a Tier 5 vessel. But most of this is simply hollow space. The primary function of this state is a mobile defensive barricade, allowing me to move into position, place ships within the defensive parameters of mine, hold them in position, and then, just as easily as I moved in there, move out, taking those ships along with me. Within the controlled parameters, I can hold up to 3 Tier 1 ships, 2 Tier 2 ships, or a single Tier 3 ship. The ships are held in a form of stasis, and so there's no risk to them, and they are protected by my ship defenses, meaning my shield arrays will prevent them from taking any more damage until the shield arrays of my ship are taken offline. This transformation allows countless benefits and different strategic maneuvers that can be applied, including evacing severely damaged ships from the combat zone so that they can be repaired elsewhere, thus reducing our risk of casualties and allowing us to return ships to the battlefield that might otherwise have been destroyed. This also increases our sustainability should the conflict draw on. That is, if you choose to ask me to use it in that manner. I'm simply telling you the abilities of my ship, Mika said, crossing her arms as she stared out into a crowd of vacant faces, everyone seeming to be completely blown away. They had never heard anything like that. She must be joking, many of them muttered, as the captain of the ship they were on, the one currently leading the conversation, next to the holographic display, it began to speak up, after looking as if he was talking into some sort of communications device. Quiet! Quiet! He said, raising his hands around, and raising his voice to make sure everyone could hear him. We've just received the data transfer for the new ships and are adding it to the holographic display, he said, as he pressed a few buttons on the device responsible for the holographic display. And both Mika's ship, as well as Friedmont's ship, appeared within the holographic display, becoming the primary focus of the display itself. Friedmont's ship simply sat there as it was, However, the holographic display of Mika's ship shifted back and forth between two separate displays. Eventually, they decided to just show both of the states, rather than the singular one, or a shift between them, with the combat state of exovol still looking much like an arrowhead, simply dangerous by all appearances, while the new state that they had decided to go with, Art State, looked something more like a squid with a large frontal segment that was rounded off, and four long armored segments that reached out, connecting in the back and forming a sort of shield barrier around a large segment of empty space.